This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Tonight reporting from Saudi Arabia.
Good evening from the eastern province of Saudi Arabia this Thanksgiving Day. A reminder of what has been lost out here. That fighter is from the Kuwaiti Air Force, still sitting here on a Saudi airfield. President Bush said here today that America was a nation at peace, while telling all those servicemen and women here that they may yet have to go to war. He came to thank them and once again try to explain their mission. Here's our White House correspondent, Britt Hume.
The president's helicopter carried him into distant and desolate reaches of the Saudi desert, where the elements are harsh and the population is mostly made up of U.S. soldiers.
And so I've come out here today personally to thank you, the men and women who have endured much and sacrificed more to stand tall against aggression.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I get a proud of you. Very much so.
The soldiers Mr. Bush addressed seem not to need much convincing that they are here for a good reason.
Thank you, Judge. Not at all.
Still, he put new emphasis on the prospect of an Iraqi nuclear capability, although he would later say there was no new evidence of that.
Every day that passes brings Saddam Hussein one step closer to realizing his goal of a nuclear weapons arsenal, and that's another reason, frankly, why more and more our mission is marked by a real sense of urgency.
Mr. Bush coupled that warning with the strongest warning he's issued yet of the possibility of war.
We're not walking away until our mission is done, until the invader is out of Kuwait. And that may well be where you come in.
They cheered that too, and while Mr. Bush seemed emboldened today, he also seemed emotionally aware that the men and women before him might soon be at war. At a religious service aboard the helicopter assault ship Nassau, the feeling showed.
I cannot overstate to you the outpouring of support from your friends and families, and it does express the support that the American people have for you on this important mission.
At the end of the day, the president also had an explanation of why Americans must bear the brunt of that mission.
We're the United States of America. We have a disproportionate responsibility to lead and to stand for something, and that's what we're doing.
As dusk fell, the president's jeep pulled out, ending an unforgettable day in the desert for him and for the soldiers still there. Britt Hume, ABC News, Dhahran, Saudi Arabia.
There has been a lot of talk here today about what effect the president's visit will have on the troops' morale. During this most family day on the U.S. calendar, this many thousands of miles away from home, even a presidential visit and the first fresh food in weeks goes only so far. ABC's Jim Hickey has been talking to the Army.
Over at the 16th Military Police Brigade, cooks were up early this morning getting turkeys ready for about 1,000 soldiers. They didn't eat with the president today, but they did have a message for him.
You know, if we're going to go to war, let's go to war. If we ain't going to war, let's go home where we belong with our loved ones.
The president came to boost their spirits. They wanted to know only one thing.
I guess the ultimate question, when are we going home?
Over at the 7th Air Defense Artillery Regiment, they were all wondering about that.
Just everybody feels the same. Nobody really wants to be here. It's just their job, their duty.
The Thanksgiving meals helped the homesickness a little. Virtually every one of the 200,000 soldiers here received a turkey dinner.
They've definitely outdone themselves.
Still, many of these troops have doubts about why they are here. Today makes it worse.
The holidays are for family, I think. As far as I'm concerned, that's the way I like to spend them anyway, not overseas, sitting waiting for war.
Commanders say morale among the troops is more of a concern to them today than any other day since U.S. forces were deployed here 3 months ago. So some units scheduled a hectic round of sports and other activities intended to distract them and wear them out.
They don't have that much of a chance to dwell and focus in on missing the loved ones today.
That may work for a while, but there is still that unanswered question for the president.
When are we going home?
Jim Hickey, ABC News, Saudi Arabia.
In the effort to maintain morale, so much depends on how close you can come to duplicating the comforts of home. As ABC's Bill Rediker reports, today the Air Force does it better than most.
Fighter pilots and their mechanics did not see the president today, but it didn't seem to matter. An abundance of hot food served in a cool, air-conditioned tent kept their morale high. For the Air Force, living right is not a one-day affair. Since they arrived in August, they've been spared many of the hardships that have become a way of life for others here. None of the other services can build hot tubs and sun decks because they are on the move. The Air Force, camped out permanently next to an air base, provides recreational services 24 hours a day.
The lifestyle for the Air Force is 10 times better than the Army right now.
Officers say maintaining high morale is critical because their men handle the military's most expensive hardware. An advanced fighter jet can cost $30 million. Pilots and mechanics cannot afford to slip up. They need to be spoiled.
And they've got to be in the peak of condition to troubleshoot that airplane and make it as combat ready as possible.
You don't take care of your people, you know, their morale will get down, and they say, well, why should I bust my behind for you?
That's why the Air Force does not require uniforms during off-duty hours. And that's why at today's Thanksgiving Day parade, the brass looked the other way when its airmen and airwomen played a little loose with strict Saudi regulations against having too much fun. Bill Rediker, ABC News, Saudi Arabia.
One other note about morale, it really does help to hear in person about the enormous value of mail from home. At the various desert units we have visited, they say that mail delivery is better now. And many of the soldiers say they are especially grateful to those at home who address their letters simply to an American serviceman. And then there was Thanksgiving in Baghdad. About 70 American and European hostages were brought by Saddam Hussein from the so-called strategic locations where they are being held to a country club in Baghdad for Thanksgiving dinner. Turkey, salmon, and steaks, and publicity. One of the hostages, Gene Parker of Vidor, Texas, told reporters the hostages were but pawns on a chessboard and would not prevent an American attack on Iraq. Here in Saudi Arabia today, the American commander, General Norman Schwarzkopf, told us he feels no pressure to attack, no artificial deadline, and that American forces, in his opinion, are not yet completely ready. In a moment, the other big news from overseas, the British Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, has resigned. And at the end of the broadcast, we'll hear from some of the men and women serving here in Saudi Arabia, their thoughts this Thanksgiving Day on mission and home.
This is World News Tonight with